Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are glad to have you with us today for this webinar on international trade essentials, importing and exporting for your small business. I am your moderator, Jenny Alton from the New York Small Business Development Center Central Office. This webinar is brought to you jointly by the International Trade Initiative of the New York Small Business Development Center and our Mohawk Valley Regional Center. The NYSBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner with regional centers at higher education institutions and outreach offices at other locations across New York State. Our free advising, education, research, and advocacy services are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. So the people that you are going to see on your screen today, in the order that you are going to see them, are as follows. You'll first hear from Zach Steffen, who is the director of our Mohawk Valley Regional NYSBDC Center. Then you'll hear from Kathryn Bamberger, International Trade Manager at Global New York, part of Empire State Development. After her, you will hear from Dr. Mercedes Sanchez-Moore, who is the director of the NYSBDC International Trade Initiative. And last but definitely not least is John Tracy, Senior International Trade Specialist with the U.S. Department of Commerce Syracuse Associate Office. A few housekeeping items now. So you know we are recording today, and we will share links excuse me, to a PDF copy of the slides and the recording in a follow-up email. Attendees are muted and will not be on camera, and your chats will be visible to me and our presenters. If you have any questions regarding what is covered today, please don't hesitate to type them in the chat or the Q&A box as they come up. You can open both the chat and the Q&A from buttons at the bottom of your Zoom window, and we will address questions at the end of everyone's presentations. Okay, I think that does it for my housekeeping, and I'm going to open the chat and turn the time over to Zach.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll be very brief. Thanks everyone for attending today. Really appreciate you all joining us. I think we have a great lineup of three experts from three organizations that have a lot of really wonderful resources to help support your small business as you think about international trade. And with that, I'm going to cede my time to those experts and hand it off to Kathryn. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the international trade session that we had hoped to do in person, but we're glad to do it to a wider audience here virtually. My name is Kathryn Bamberger, as was mentioned. I'm the International Trade Specialist for Global New York, which is a division of the Empire State Development Organization, which is the business development, economic development for New York State. If I can get this to move now. There we go. And our goal for our team is to promote the opportunities that exist for small and medium-sized enterprises across New York State to take place in a global trade economy and help them grow. Everything that we do in our agency is to help businesses grow so that they can offer employment opportunities, quality employment opportunities to residents across New York State. As you know, or as you have probably seen in the news, there's a lot of international trade business in just even regular everyday news, not just the business news and sector. A lot of people have questions about tariffs, and there is a lot of questions and volatility and changing landscapes. And so in July, we developed a website page to help address some of these issues and give links and communication opportunities to businesses that are being affected by tariffs and the changing landscape, as well as offering some remedies and resources for that. And you can find that on our website on the tariffs resources page. And also, if you have any questions or stories that you would like to tell about how the tariffs are impacting your business, there is also an email address that will go to our executives at ESD. In addition to the folks that are here today, and in addition to all of the businesses that are online with us today, we have a number of different stakeholders and partners that we work with. Internally, we offer minority small business certification and supports and grants and loan programs. We also work with strategic businesses, some of our larger legacy businesses across the state, with technology and research, and with tourism. We also work with local chambers of commerce, industry associations, and the small business development centers. We also participate in the District Export Council, which is part of the Federal Department of Commerce, along with local businesses and other service providers. We work with non-for-profits and non-governmental organizations such as Food Export USA and the Council of Great Lakes Governors, and of course, our SBA sources for funding and resources, such as the Small Business Development Centers, our partners at the Department of Commerce, Export-Import Bank, and U.S. Department of Agriculture. So why do we do this work? 95% of the world's population and 75% of the world's purchasing power. Those are numbers that we like to use on a regular basis just to promote the fact that there is a lot of business to be had outside of our area, outside of our state, our region, and particularly outside of the United States. And it's a very big part of the global economy, geopolitical concerns. It has lots of opportunities for companies to grow and to mitigate some of the volatility that they may have in a more local economy, in a local market. However, the vast majority of our small and medium-sized enterprises across the country, and including in New York State, do not take advantage of these opportunities, and that's why we do the work that we do. So just looking at, what do we sell from New York? There are a lot of different things, and you can see back when I started in this business, I noticed that there was this special category called NESOI, which is an acronym because in government, that's what we do best, is a lot of different acronyms for all our different programs and services and shorthand for a lot of our jargon. And that is basically a miscellaneous category. And as you can see from New York, because we have such a wide variety of products and services that are offered from businesses in our state, that's one of our top categories. In addition, precious stones and metals and arts and antiquities are also up there, again, because this is all by dollar value, and those are high dollar value items. So because we're a port state and we have a mature market and we have a lot of museums and jewelry and other kinds of industries in our state, we do see that a lot of our products and services that we export are in that category. And then again, a lot of our legacy businesses in pharmaceuticals and electronics and optics and aircraft parts, plastics with General Electric, and our cosmetics industry are leading some of those top products that we export. And thus our top partners can include places like Switzerland. China has been in and out of the top export market and has various times been supplanted by leadership from Hong Kong. Our big partner, of course, is Canada. Switzerland, which speaks to those arts and antiquities and jewelry. A lot of that business happens in that market. Mexico, our other North American trading partner, is steady in the middle, a little bit up and down over the years, but is definitely a great partner. India and Singapore, similarly in Asia, leadership. And a new one for us is importing products from South Africa. So Global New York, in addition to our team locally here in New York, we also contract with a number of personnel across the world. We now have new offices, so we are able to offer market research services in 187 countries, and through these different sort of headquarters offices that you see here. New to us, relatively new to us, is the Caribbean and India, Australia, and we have newer partners in both Canada and Mexico, as well as Europe. So we have long-standing relationship in Israel, new coverage in UAE and Middle East, and fairly long-term coverage in Africa. So it's been a really wonderful almost a year and a half now that we've had these expanded opportunities. But these are basically folks that are in market on the ground, able to do some third party as well as firsthand research on your behalf. And that's through something we call the Export Marketing Assistance Program. That's one of our first that we'll cover today. Then we also have 2 grant programs, the State Trade Expansion Program and the Global New York Fund Program. The STEP grant is a federally funded program through the SBA, and the Global New York Fund is through the state. So the EMAS, again, using our foreign representatives, will provide industry information as well as country-specific information about the market as general and specific to your industry sector. And they offer also a list of potential importers and partners, and all of this is offered at no cost. The idea is ultimately, again, to help grow sales in that particular market, or in the case of stiff competition or other reasons why that market does not make sense, it can save companies a lot of time and effort to something that won't likely be successful. So the way that we work is a company will submit a very brief application telling us about your company, your products, your ideal customers, and any experience that you already have, either with personnel or with the company. If we find that your company qualifies and you're making products or creating services in the state of New York, at least 50% or more of the value, and are headquartered in New York, then we can move forward with the EMAS application. It's an iterative process, so you work with the company, with the in-market representative, having a little meeting, discussing more of the finer points about your business and your interests in that market, and then they will come back to you with a preliminary report. You can identify whether or not they've hit the mark on your suggested partners, and then they can offer some meetings and introductions. The STEP program has been, we're now in our 12th year currently. We've expanded the range of opportunities through April of 2026. It's a 50% reimbursement program with caps on various sort of pockets of funding for different activities. And again, the company has to be headquartered in New York and creating at least 50% of or more of the product's value, not just in New York, but somewhere in the United States. The Global New York Grant Fund is funded by the state and again, targets small and medium-sized businesses. In some cases where businesses have a parent or a child company that has additional employees, the Global New York Fund, this is one of those nuances between the two funds. The Global New York Fund really only looks at the New York State employment, whereas the STEP grant looks at global employment. So if they're partners already in the parent or child subsidiary kind of organization, the STEP funds through the SBA guidelines will look at global employment, and Global New York Fund will look specifically at New York State employment. We did recently complete in September a roadshow where all of our foreign representatives came into New York and got to see all of the different regions up close and personal. They stopped in every region, from Lake Placid to Buffalo to Long Island. And we had over 150 brand new companies who'd never worked with us or met with us before. And we had almost a 30% increase over the last time that we did it in 2023, and 853 meetings, as you can see there, really large increase where the businesses were actually able to meet with these representatives one-on-one and discuss the nuances of their particular companies. We had a trade mission almost a year ago now in Australia. Also in South America, we took part in Trade Winds, which is a U.S. Department of Commerce program that allowed our companies to meet with the commerce representatives in those countries, kind of more consolidated in a single location, as well as being able to travel around to a couple of additional markets. We also took a contingency. One of the new emerging industries across our state is game development. And it's not just creating games, but it's all of the things that our companies provide services for: storyboarding, musical composition, art and design, programming, all of the things that go into game design. Some of the biggest game designers in the world are subcontracting to our New York companies. And so in order to give them some more exposure, especially some of the newer companies, there was a big game show in Tokyo, and our companies were able to travel to that to try to gain new customers around the world. In addition, we also had a trade mission to Canada, and 8 companies traveled to both Toronto and Montreal, where they had, again, one-on-one meetings. And these are the kinds of things that we facilitate on a fairly regular basis. These are the ones that are coming up soon. I actually leave for Mexico tomorrow morning at dark 30, just ahead of the storm that's going to sweep across the state. And in addition, we also are doing what used to be called Arab Health. It's now called World Health Dubai next month. And in March, we have a trade mission to India, which hasn't happened in a couple of years. And so really looking forward to that. ASEAN region in May, and Dominican Republic and Jamaica in the Caribbean region later in May, early June. So most of our team is based in and around New York City. And we have people who are sort of the lead on each of our grant programs, as well as the EMS system. And then we also have staff in our regional offices. Again, for myself, I cover the Mohawk Valley, North Country, and Capital District, but we also have staff in Buffalo, in Rochester, on Long Island, and the Mid-Hudson regions. So I'm glad to take any questions later on. If you'd like to put them in the chat, I'll make sure that Mercedes and Jenny help me answer those questions. And I thank you so much for your time, and also thank Jenny for her excellent hosting skills, and of course, Dr. Sanchez-Moore for always including us in her presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathryn. I will share Mercedes' slides, and I just want to direct your attention to a few questions that we already have in the chat for you, Kathryn. So thank you, and appreciate your help in answering those. All right, Mercedes.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Kathryn, once again for your friendship and for agreeing to participate and collaborate in our training and all the webinars that we do throughout the year. As Jenny said, I am Dr. Mercedes Sanchez-Moore, the Director of the International Trade Initiative in the New York Small Business Development Center. Next. There you go. As Jenny had explained, the New York SBDC is truly a partnership. We are funded by the U.S. Business Administration, and we partner with SUNY, who is our host, the City University of New York, New York State, higher education institutions, and the private sector. As the rest of the SBDC, we provide consulting, training, and research in support of entrepreneurship and economic development for the state of New York. Next, please. We are very lucky to be in a special program within the New York SBDC network that consists of 20 regional centers, and we also have 72 outreach and satellite offices all over the state that you can see in this map. It provides a very good point of access to the population in New York. 98% of the people in New York are within 30 minutes of a SBDC service location. Next, please. The New York SBDC International Trade Initiative supports SBDC clients statewide with expertise and experience in both international trade and trade compliance, and we are the only agency that also provides assistance with import operations. We train our staff as well, do professional development, increasing trade advising capabilities statewide. Our services are 100% free and confidential, and we do help small and medium-sized companies become globally competitive by providing export development, as I said, import operations assistance through one-on-one trade, consulting, market research, innovative training, and links to additional export resources, and provided by our partners. Some of them are here, Global New York, the U.S. Commercial Service, the Department of Commerce. We also partner very closely with SBA, which is our funder, and Exim Bank, which is one of the export finance partners and many private and public organizations. Next slide, please. Well, we can help you become successful at exporting. We provide assistance for retailers, manufacturers, high technology, and service companies around the state of New York with planning and implementation of export strategies. And we assist in areas like export readiness reviews. That's the first step. And I will explain that later. We also help people try writing their export business plan, identify and target international markets, selecting sales and distribution channels, that's the market entry strategy, with legal considerations, and we provide referrals to attorneys and other sources, logistic and documentation, market research, trade statistics, international financing, grants, and additional resources. Next, please. All right. So Kathryn has already given some information about this as to who is exporting and why you should be exporting. 95% of the population of the world is outside of the United States. That's a very good reason. And the other is that people who export have experienced a faster growth than non-exporting companies. They also are much more resilient if there is an economic crisis, 8.5% less likely to go out of business. Exporting helps you diversify sales and also increase productivity and use any excess capacity that you might have. Also helps increase innovation and product design and application and keep up with what is going on with the rest of the world, okay? In regards to who is exporting, the vast majority, 97%, are small and mid-sized businesses. And most of these companies, 67, have fewer than 20 employees. Next slide, please. So here are the services that we provide to companies that are trying to import. We provide quite a bit of education along the year, and we have several webinars on importing basics. We assist with classification of products, both for exporting and importing. That is the HTUS classification that I'm going to explain a little bit later. And also providing information about tariffs. This 2025 has been, as you know, the year of the tariffs. And we do have lots of resources and tariff trackers to be able to give you a preliminary idea of what to expect when you are importing products. But most importantly, we're going to refer you to several custom brokers. They are the ones that have all the legal context and the knowledge and the ability to provide you with the final assistance to import. We also provide assistance understanding the import regulations that are going to affect your product, and specifically for food. Food always requires the certification of the supplier that is overseas or the facilities where the goods are stored. Why this happened? Because of reasons of national security, of course. We also provide assistance understanding the documentation that is involved and the logistics, contacting freight forwarders, etc. We provide market research and trade statistics and links to international financing. Next, please. Jenny?
Sorry, just a moment. Are you seeing the exporting basics slide?
Importing services.
Importing services. Hold on just a moment.
I do have the presentation open myself. If you want, I can try to share the slides.
Hang on just a second. Is this the one that you're looking for?
8. The next. I mean, I am still seeing the importing services.
Okay, import assistance services. So the next one was that, and I apologize. that there was a mix-up on those. So the next one that I see is exporting basics after that.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So you want exporting basics?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you got it.
Thank you.
There you go.
It's not showing up in my screen.
Okay, let me then stop sharing and reshare. Thank you for your patience with our technical difficulties, everyone.
At least we haven't lost the internet service.
Right. These are overcomable challenges. Okay.
Exactly. All right, well, today I'm going to be talking about the fundamentals of exporting and providing certain steps. And in the essence of time, I'm going to fly through the slides, but they are very rich in information. And I will also invite you to contact me so we can follow up with any questions that you might have after the presentation. I have grouped the steps in these 4 stages, but this is just my choice. There are many different ways to provide these fundamentals. In the first stage, I'm gonna be talking about how to prepare your company for export. In the second stage, how to conduct the market research that is necessary to inform whatever decision you're gonna take. And in the stage 3, to explain how you can find partners and buyers. And finally, we are going to talk about making the sale, the processes that are involved there, and also how you can get paid. Next, please. All right. Before pursuing international expansions, there are certain topics and concepts that you need to understand, and they relate to your product and to your company. The first thing that you need to do is to evaluate the suitability of your product for international markets. Most successful products that are sold overseas have unique capabilities or features, and they are very hard to duplicate abroad. Most of them are protected by patents and have superior quality, cutting-edge technology, and they are adaptable very easily for export markets. These products can satisfy a foreign market need that you can identify through research. Okay, the other thing that I would like to talk about, the indicators of your company export potential. And many times, many of my clients have started exporting because somebody contacts them through their website. So if you receive an inquiry from abroad or your website analytics indicates that there is interest from foreign customers, that is why you should take and consider exporting seriously. Other important considerations are determining your company readiness to export. For what I have seen, and my experience tells me, companies that have been very successful domestically have a very good chance to become also successful internationally. So when I talk to a company, the majority of them are way over a year established and with sales, and they know their product very well. They also have a model that they have proved that it can be successful. The other thing is that management is highly committed to do, all the learning that is necessary, because there is a learning curve, but it's not impossible to learn. There are many, many millions of companies that are exporting and go through this process. So it's just the willingness to have the patience and the willingness to study and learn. The other thing that is very important is to realize if you're going to be able to upscale or produce more, if you have the capacity actually to sell the product. Sometimes companies are growing. I have a company that is growing very, very fast, much faster than they can produce. So we are constantly looking for ways to upgrade that production, and that can take place by increasing their ability to obtain financing, or if, depending on the industry that you are in, this case that I'm thinking is food. So we are looking for co-packers, for the third co-packer now, all right? The one thing that I was going to express. With the export plan, that is the next thing that I want to talk about, we should conduct market research before we start, but as you are going to see in the next slide, there are some things that are internal to your company that you can start right away, okay? Writing these details together. Specifically, what are your objectives? Are you trying, how much are you trying to grow, and if it's realistic? What earnings are you looking for, and the commitment of your team? Within the plan, you need to identify the products that you think that you have already researched that is going to tell you that they have the potential. And what are your customers? Who are the international customers that you think you're going to be able to meet their needs? Something very important is to know about the strengths, the weakness, opportunities, and threats that you're going to be finding overseas, and then analyze competitors, who's already selling there, who has similar or equivalent products, what are their prices, their market share, and the local manufacturers that are present. Next slide, please. Here, I'm not going to go and cover everything, but I wanted to provide you the information to guide you on how to conduct your own export business plan. What is the purpose of this plan? Is to provide consensus and also give you a roadmap. This business plan has to be flexible. You have to change according to what you find, your experience, etc. And it keeps the strategy simple and is adaptable, of course. It justifies the options and ensure that you are using the resources effectively. And I believe that by having a clear idea of what you are doing, it increases your chances of success, and it also tracks your progress. These are to your left are very simple. This is a very simple design for a business plan, and the parts including the introduction and situational analysis, where you're explaining why your company should export, because you have found that you have a product that is in demand, somebody has been contacting you, etc. You identify the products and the export potential that they have, and you justify it. And then why you believe that you have a competitive advantage, and what are the unique features of the product that you are trying to export. Another thing, right now, we used to have 14 free trade agreements. Right now, there is only one with Canada and Mexico, the USMCA. And you need to figure out if your product is eligible under these free trade agreements, so you avoid that your clients are going to have to pay tariffs for your product when they import the product from you. Something else that you need to identify are your resources, and very important, what is the harmonized and Schedule B codes that are assigned to your products. I'm going to provide more information about this in these slides. The second step is a marketing component. This is a marketing plan with actionable steps. You need to select the markets that you want to enter, and your research is gonna be the one informing your decision, okay? The other thing that we are also gonna cover is your pricing. For promotion is what kind of marketing that you wanna be using, but pricing is very, very important. You need to understand what cost are you gonna have and how much is your product gonna cost to be sent to the door of your buyer. And this is here including the duty, taxes, and freight, and many other things that I'm gonna be talking about later. And also the business plan should include your sales goals, an analysis of how profitable you are expecting to be. And that will depend much about the pricing and your ability to calculate the cost, of course. And then also, we are going to be talking about the terms and conditions which are laid out for sales in your contract, but for shipping and for negotiating with your customer is going to be through the Incoterms, international commercial terms. The third section of your business plan is going to speak about your selling tactics, and is going to describe your countries and your sale approach, the distribution methods that you're going to use. You also need to take into account insurance, and this insurance could be for many different things. You could have business insurance, product insurance, and you could have transportation insurance in itself or credit insurance to protect the way that you're going to get paid, making sure that you get paid. In your plan, you should also speak about how you're going to build and how you're going to maintain the essential business relationships that you need to develop with your foreign agents, distributor, customers, that are going to allow you to continue selling. And last but not least, having an export budget with the financials and at least a 5-year profit and loss and cash flow, some break-even analysis. And you should identify your financial sources and how you're going to be utilizing your profits. You need to track your progress while you are implementing the strategies that you have decided, and monitor your progress. And of course, as I said, it has to be flexible. You need to edit, update, and modify it as you see that you are performing. Okay? Next, please. Much of the export plan is going to be informed by conducting market research. And to do market research, the first step is to find how your products are classified internationally. And this is done through the harmonized system of HS code. And it's a globally accepted product classification that is used by customs worldwide and is used by 200 countries already. It is standardized internationally to 6 digits, and countries extend further. In the United States, we use 10 digits. I'm sorry, I'm going to drink some water. And as we are going to see now in the next slide, the HTS US is the code used for imports, and the Schedule B is the one that we use for export and is administered by the US Department of Census. Within the code, the first 6 digits are universal. Everybody uses the same codes, or we are expecting to be the same. Sometimes they are not. And the last 4 are used for, is country specific. We use them in the United States for statistical purposes. Why are these so important? Because it determines duties, taxes, licensing, the risk level, whether the goods are allowed to enter the country or are going to be restricted. And most custom delays are caused by incorrect classification, actually, not by missing documents. The legal responsibility, even if your custom broker is the one or the freight forwarder filing this information, the legal responsibility is always with the exporter or the importer. Okay? So why are we using, what is important, this HS code? They allow you, there are many websites that I'm going to show you from the US Department of Commerce and other private sources that uses the HS code as the basis to conduct market research, okay? And you can identify potential foreign markets, the activities of competitors and foreign import tariffs to fulfill export orders. And also it will allow you to calculate landed cost that I'm going to explain later, but it's actually is the total cost of your product that takes into account all the costs associated with exporting. Next slide, please. As I said before, this is a very information-rich slide that I'm not going to go through myself, but I wanted for you to have it so you can understand how to classify and also why having the right HS code is so important for both importing and exporting, okay? As I said, if you don't have the right code, your product is going to be stuck in customs because that's how customs assign duties and tariffs. Also, it provides licensing and regulation requirement and determine if your product is going to be eligible under the free trade agreements that I was telling you about, and also if they are restricted or prohibited. So next slide, please. This is a very important aspect to consider because you're going to try to export to make money, right? And you're going to be able to have a profit if your pricing strategy covers all your costs and allows you to break a profit. There are many different strategies that you can go by, and some are based, the simplest one are based on a margin charge over the cost that you calculate. Just to explain what are the landed costs and what is included there, it's gonna include from packaging to shipping costs, duties, taxes, any market specific expenses that are like currency fluctuation, also any kind of fees that you are paying to agents or banking fees, if there is currency consideration, etc. If you need assistance with the landed cost, you can contact me directly. And this is very important that you understand, and it's very difficult sometimes to really know what is all the costs that are associated. As I said before, the cost-based pricing tends to be the most widely accepted pricing strategy. And what it does is just charges a margin over the cost, ensuring profitability. Another approach is market-based pricing that is set according to what customers in the target market are willing to pay or what other competitors charge, like the leader pricing. Sometimes people say, okay, whatever the leader is charging, that's exactly what I'm going to be charging. Some other companies decide to do penetration pricing, which is going to start at a lower level, and then it's going to raise the price afterwards, depending on what the market bears. Some other, for example, high-end products will use market skimming, which it will use a very high price. Think about Apple, an Apple phone, or any sort of high technology. At first, the price is really, really high, and then as the demand decreases, the price is going to go lower. And you also have a trial pricing, which you're going to try to provide sometimes the products free or just for testing, or offer low price offer. Think about Netflix, for example, or and any other cable providers. They do this. They provide some offers just to start getting and seeing what is the acceptance of consumers. One thing I can tell you, you don't need to have the same pricing strategy for all the markets. I had this discussion today, sorry, not today, but this week with a client of mine, because she wanted to follow exactly the same strategy that she was using in the United States. And I will advise you not to do that. You need to look at the market circumstances, at the price of the shipping, at a lot of different things, okay, before you decide that even for your distributors, they are going to have to follow wherever you decide domestically. That is not the case. Next slide, please. I'm going to really run here. I borrowed this slide from my friend John Tracy agency, the U.S. Commercial Service. They have amazing resources through their trade.gov website. One of them is the Learn How to Export, that I will advise everyone to use because they have videos and many materials to continue educating yourself. But look at what they have. You can research by country. This is super rich, the country commercial guides. And it will tell you about condition, opportunities, regulations, what are the custom requirements, etc. Also about the free trade agreement. And then you have industry research. So depending on your product, you can just identify what are the target market there, as well as the market diversification tool. I really advise you to take time. I'm going to provide you this slide and go and check all of these resources by yourself, okay? But these are tremendous free resources. We also have a department of a research network at the SBDC level. You have also the Public Library of New York with amazing resources. So also, Kathryn mentioned their export marketing access services, and they do provide research that is conducted by their foreign advisors. John, I think that he will explain what his department can do in this regards. But again, market research is super important for you to be able to take any decisions regarding exporting. Next, please. We are going to start with stage 3 in finding partners and buyers. The most important considerations is to decide what market entry you're going to take. If you're going to go directly by yourself to your customers or indirectly. Indirectly uses an intermediary, and it could be a sales agent or export management company or export trading company. And directly, you can also use a foreign sales representative that you contract, or a distributor that you can find through the assistance of John Tracy, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and also Global New York as well. Sometimes you can decide to go by yourself through your website using e-commerce, developing an online strategy. Very important that you look at how your website could be a mechanism for others not only to find you, but to find information about your products and to contact you. So make sure that you understand how to globalize your website and also how to conduct social media marketing towards your international clients. We today are going to speak a little bit about export logistics, and US regulation is not going to be covered here. We're going to have another webinar in February and also later in the year that is going to be related to US regulations. This is a very rich topic, and just to mention something about it, you need to really be careful about who are you going to sell to and where your product is going to land. Just make sure that you conduct due diligence. We're going to have a webinar just on that, on how to conduct due diligence and find out who your buyer and seller is, and if you're able and capable of doing business with them without any problems from the legal perspective. I am going to give you some information about export logistics regarding Incoterms and export documentation that is going to help you understand what do you need to prepare and what do you need to understand when you talk to your buyers. Next, please. Incoterms stands for International Commercial Terms, and there are 11 terms that are globally recognized. There are 3-letter trade rules published by the International Chamber of Commerce that define the responsibilities of buyers and sellers regarding cost documentation and who bears the risk at each stage of the journey. Now, Incoterms are not the sales contract. It's not a legal term, but it's going to determine, it's very important that you understand, because what it does is it tells you exactly who is going to bear the cost, at what point is going to pass the risk, and also who provides what documentation, etc., etc., etc. The most common Incoterms, it can go from ex works, where, as you can see here, the seller has very, very little responsibility. It's the minimal responsibility, just making the goods available to the premises of the buyer. To their premises, sorry, and then the buyer assumes all the cost and risk from then on. And then the opposite is the duty delivered unpaid, which is charges all the responsibility onto the buyer. As you see here, what it does, the seller bears all the cost, including shipping, duties, and taxes, and the buyer, sorry, is the minimal responsibility. So minimal responsibility here for the seller with Ex Works, and then minimal for the buyer with DDP. And in between, you have a lot of different Incoterms that divides this cost, shipping, etc. Okay. Next, please. My slides will give you more information as to how to understand all of that. Now, export documents are going to depend on the type of transportation that you use. Here I'm listing the documents that are most important for the transportation by sea. And one thing that is very peculiar that you need to understand, the bill of lading in sea provides the title of the goods. It's proof of ownership, and it's a key transportation contract. We're going to see now the airway bill of lading, and that acts only as a receipt, and whoever claims the goods can take them. They are not the proof of ownership. Okay, very important to understand that. If you are shipping by sea, the bill of lading provides you with more security that the goods are only going to be provided to the buyer once the payment is done, if you are using a letter of credit or documentary collections. But with an airway bill, is not the case, okay, if you're sending by air. Other important documents to take into account is the commercial invoice detailing the goods, the value, and the terms of the sale. The packing list is for both, either by sea or air, and it provides the quantity, the weight of the boxes, the dimensions, etc. And then another document that is very important is the certificate of origin, and confirms where the goods were manufactured and what it does. If you are going to claim eligibility for the free trade agreement, you're going to need a certificate of origin. Then the doc receipt is that the goods are received by the carrier. Also, you can provide shipping instruction. The shipper letter of instruction will provide all the details and include everything that all these documents list. Other documents include dangerous cargo declaration. This is both for sea and air. And then the certificate of insurance. I said before that there are different types. This one is for transportation, and it covers against the loss of damage when the goods are in transit. And a letter of credit is just one of the methods of payments, and it secures payment guarantees between the bank. Okay, and once the bank gets the funds, then it goes to the seller. Next, please. And here is a list of the documents when you are shipping by air. I already have explained what they are, but just be aware, the airway bill doesn't provide the title, okay? It's not a proof of ownership, so be aware of that. And whenever you are going to sell and ship by air, your method of payment need to reflect that you get paid before somebody goes there and pick it up. Next, please. The last stage includes items related to making the sale and getting paid. Today, we are not going to be covering any of the legal aspects of contracting, but you need to understand how to draft a contract, not only for sale, but also for your distributors, and you should use an attorney for this. We provide education, and you can go to the Department of Commerce, learn how to export, and you can find more information regarding the legal aspects. Something that you need to be aware, your intellectual property protection here in the United States doesn't cover you internationally. We had webinars before covering these topics, and I know that we are including all of our webinars in the website, so you can check it out, apart from using the website from the Department of Commerce. Another very important aspect for the basics are the export financing. We also have covered this topic, and we have a webinar coming in March that is gonna cover, with a bank is gonna cover all the options that you have through SBA guarantees and also EXIM. The SBA and EXIM do not provide funding directly, but they guarantee the financing through their partnering banks. Okay. And the last slide, next please, is gonna discuss how you're gonna get paid. This is gonna be covered also in the webinar that we are gonna have in March. I just wanted to give you this information. And the most important thing that you need to understand is that you need to balance competitiveness with the risk of getting paid, okay? And choose the payment method that protects your business while supporting strong international relationships. So let's think here. For the exporter, the most secure is cash in advance. This is really sweet. You get paid before you ship the goods, okay? So very little risk for you. Then the next more secure is a letter of credit, but it is expensive. I mean, it includes, you have to go to your bank and request that the buyer's bank issue guarantees for payment as a condition that you ship. I mean, you provide all the documents that they inspect, maybe sometimes the goods and everything looks good and okay. So it is the two banks, the issuer bank and the advising bank, which is doing the negotiation and providing the documentation. So they said useful when buyer creditworthiness is uncertain because it protects you, okay? The next step is a documentary collection where the bank is going to release the documents for the importer if they pay, okay, or accept. This is negotiated, the acceptance of the document, and is less expensive than the letter of credit and is a limited resource if buyer defaults. So it's safer. The safer thing is the letter of credit, actually, even though it's more expensive. The next is the open account. This is pretty risky because it means that you're going to be paid afterwards. But I would use this domestically, especially not with people that are new, not new customers, and you don't know they're going to pay. Some people don't realize about this. Doing business internationally is not the same that doing business domestically, okay? So do not use open account with new customers. If you have doubts about this, please contact me or contact your bank and they can advise you about which is the best method for you to use. It is favorable for buyer's cash flow, but it's a high risk for the exporter, okay? It could be mitigated, that is true, through credit insurance, and for that you can obtain it from EXIM or from private institutions. It's a very inexpensive way of covering your risk, so I will highly advise you to get more information about export credit insurance. Now, the other way that people use as a method of payment is consignment, and is actually what you are doing is you have an agreement to send your goods, and then the distributor keeps the goods and gives you the proceeds when they sell them, okay? And the exporter, you are still the owner of the goods, you retain title, and it reduces inventory cost and improve market competitiveness because you get the goods already to the market that you are trying to penetrate, and it requires trustworthy partners and insurance coverage. Again, insurance is super important, and having also a very good contract and agreement that you can enforce. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. Actually, I know that I've been, even though it took a long time, it's impossible to explain all the basics. So I will advise you to contact me directly if you have any questions or you want to learn. I do have lots of different tools to provide you, and I really appreciate your attention and your attendance to this webinar, and invite you to the next webinars that we are going to have, and we will send you notification about those. Thank you, Jenny. Hi, John.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny.
Did I just go ahead and
Yes, you have your
run
own
with it?
slides. No,
Yes, I
you
do.
can handle that?
I do.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Let me just share here. And you can see those? All right. Yes?
We can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm John Tracy. I'm a trade specialist with the U.S. Department of Commerce. I'm out in Syracuse, New York, but I cover Western New York, Central New York, and parts of Northern New York and a little bit of Long Island. So it's not important whether or not I'm in your geographic territory. You can reach out to me, and if you are served by one of my colleagues in a different office, I can make that introduction for you. So both Kathryn and Mercedes are tough acts to follow, and they covered a lot of content that I also have in my slides. So I'm going to try not to repeat things that were said, but I'll try to leave you with an overview of the programs and resources that we have that complement SBDC in global New York. So the U.S. Commercial Service is a small little boutique agency within the Department of Commerce or within the federal government. And I say that to indicate that it's just a small group of us in the larger scheme of federal service. There's probably 1,000 employees across the U.S. and in foreign offices. And our mission is pretty pure in that we're here to assist U.S. companies in penetrating new markets. We have domestically, probably, it's not quite 100 U.S. offices. I work officially for the Buffalo U.S. Export Assistance Center. In New York State, we have an office in Rochester in the Finger Lakes and in Westchester and in Manhattan. And we have offices in the embassies and consulates in about 75 countries right now. Here's a graphic illustration of our footprint. The red balloons are where we have commercial service staff at the embassies and consulates, and the blue dots are where we don't have commercial service staff, but in those instances, the commercial section of the State Department will lend assistance for business advocacy. So here are just a listing of bullets of things that we try to provide, or what we claim to provide to our audience, to our clients that we serve. I'm going to get into this in a deeper dive in some of these slides here. And this slide I always put in my presentations because it's a good reference for anybody that doesn't remember a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. This is just a nice slide where you can refer back to see if we have programs or resources that answer questions that come up in these categories. So the first thing I would like to talk about is the country commercial guides that we have, which is a free resource on our trade.gov website. Mercedes was generous in showing links to a lot of the trade.gov resources, and it's a huge website. It's got so much content in it, but that's also kind of the negative because it's really big, and if you don't know the quickest way to find the information you're looking for, that can be the downside. I'm using the trade.gov website all the time myself, and I'm referring clients to it all the time. And in it is the country commercial guide, and that's just what they sound like. You can look up alphabetically by country to read about the best U.S. prospects, market structure, regulatory requirements, documentation requirements for shipments. That kind of information is all in the country commercial guides, and they're updated pretty regularly by my colleagues in the foreign commercial service, and also the State Department contributes to those. So they get updated pretty regularly. That's also where you would find travel advisories if you're planning travel to a market. Among our services, we have the initial market check, which is just what it sounds like. You come to us and say, hey, I have reason to believe I could probably sell my products in this market, but I don't know that for sure. Can you help me verify that what I believe to be a market opportunity is valid and accurate? And so we can perform an initial market check for you. And It's a snapshot of the market at the moment and the supply chain structure and our colleagues' subjective analysis of your the potential for your products in that market. We have an international company profile service, and it's just, again, what it sounds like. It's a background check. So if someone came to you via your website or you met them at a trade show and they want to represent you or be your distributor or be your partner in a foreign market, and they're saying all the right things and they look good to you, but before diving in with both feet or before shipping a very valuable cargo in a 20-foot container to them, you want us to do some background check or verify what you believe or what you're seeing matches what we see. We can do that background check for you. And the two fees that are listed there, one is for a light touch, we call it, or an in-depth report. The light touch is, a media scan, checking to verify their ownership structure and their registrations within their country. The deeper dive involves typically a visit, and we ask for appointments with key management and also references that we interview. So their bankers, their attorneys, other customers will be interviewed, and the results of that would go in the report. So the more in-depth initial international company profile is more often ordered by our defense clients, our defense exporters that really want to make sure there's no skeletons in the closet of their trading partners before they enter into any transactions. A lot of times when people come to us and ask us about a foreign buyer that they're in discussions with, the first thing I do is email my colleagues at the post in that country and explain that we're not ready to do a formal international company profile on the company, but can you tell us what you know about them? Do they do business with other U.S. companies? Is the address valid, or what they're saying or what they're representing sound normal and customary in that market? So a lot of information could be gained from just an email exchange without getting into a fee-based service. So don't not call us if you're worried about having to be worried about being charged for a service that's never going to happen. You're never going to be surprised by a bill of amount. And then Mercedes provided some of the links for our research center, which is just a great resource, and that's not the topic of this webinar today, but there's so much information that's at your disposal. So reach out to Mercedes or me or Kathryn if you're looking for trade stats. The state has trade stats as well, and we can guide you to where you can find information that you're looking for to help you make your international business decisions. And then we have our International Partner Search, which is very similar to New York State's EMAS program, their Export Market Assistance Service. It's where you define for us what you're looking for in a business partner in a foreign market, and we use your search criteria to identify candidates that meet your search criteria, but also respond affirmatively to being interested in talking to you. And I add a third thing that has our screening to make, they have to have a legitimate business history, and again, no skeletons in their closet. So the list that you get back from this International Partner Search will be pre-screened, pre-qualified candidates that express an interest in talking to you about a possible business relationship. The Gold Key service is just an extension of that, really. It's the same process, and it culminates in us inviting you to come to that market and setting up meetings with these companies that we pre-screen and pre-qualified for you to meet. And my colleagues around the globe all agree the Gold Key service is our most effective service, and it's because you as soon as you get people sitting in a room across the table from each other, the faster business happens. So the Gold Key service, I couldn't speak more highly of, and it's a great tool. But it represents a larger commitment because you're committing to the expense and time of travel to a foreign market to do your business development work. We also do other programs that complement all of our matchmaking programs. Our international buyer programs are where we recruit delegates of buyers, of foreign buyers, to come to U.S. trade shows to meet with U.S. exporters. And we do certified trade fairs overseas where we buy up floor space at trade shows, label it a U.S. pavilion, and then turn around and sell it at a discount to U.S. exhibitors to encourage them to participate in the trade show. At those, we also do B2B matchmaking events, as we do with the international buyer programs. And then there's trade missions. This is a little quiet at the moment. The current administration has put a lot of these trade missions on hold. It doesn't mean that they're not happening at all, but less of them are happening at the moment. So, which makes me that much more grateful for what New York State and Kathryn is doing with all the trade missions they have lined up for this year. So I will point you back to Kathryn anytime you're interested in looking at some of the trade mission opportunities. Hopefully in the future, we'll get trade mission work refunded. And we have a grant that helps support that. That's just dormant at the moment, but hopefully that'll come back in the future. So come look back here occasionally to see if we've got any programs on our trade event section of our website. And then we have a tool or a service we call the single company promotion. And I always give this example because I think it's a perfect way to demonstrate what a single company promotion is. We had a company that does I was going to say did, because they still do it, but they've been sold. But they were a local New York company at the time, and they do runway resurfacing, cleaning and resurfacing and striping. And they won a contract for the Guatemalan government to recondition their major airport runway. And the notion is that if you had to rip up a concrete runway and replace it, it would be, I don't know what the cost was, but I think at the time they said it was $20 or $30 million to do that. Their solution was to come in and refurbish the existing surface, and that was less than $3 million to do that. And it would extend the life of the runway another 12 to 20 years. So they sold this service, this treatment to the Guatemalan government, and they had to ship large machinery down there to satisfy the contract. And it wasn't cost effective to then ship all that machinery back. So they asked us to do a single company promotion at the embassy in Guatemala. And we invited neighboring countries to send their ministers of interior or the ministers of transportation, who's ever in charge of airport infrastructure in their respective countries, to come and see a demonstration and hear a presentation from the New York company about how they refurbish runways. And from that meeting, they booked resurfacing contracts all the way down Central America. And last time I heard it, that equipment was in Brazil doing resurfacing projects. So it's a great example of how to use the single company promotion. And of course, I should note that there's a fee for that, and there's most of it's cost recovery fee, but also some administrative costs that we go through, but a cost recovery for meeting space to host such an event. Mercedes touched upon the importance of understanding what the harmonized tariff system codes are, what your products are, how they're codified. The Schedule B is a subset that's used by Census to track export business, but the numbers could be similar. The Schedule B is just an abbreviated version because they don't need the level of detail that we use at time of import into the U.S. for duty and tax considerations. So this is a great tool just to look up what your Schedule B number is, and from that you can use that number for trade data tracking, because it's going to could be harmonized at the 6-digit level, as Mercedes said. So if you can get the first 6 digits, and you can just append 4 zeros on the end of it, and you can use that for trade statistics research. So it's just a nice tool that's available to you. I get a lot of questions about tariff because there's been some uncertainty on tariff treatments globally. So people ask for resources on this. So you can look up most, I shouldn't say most, but there's a lot of countries that publish their tariffs online. But I also found this tariff simulator, which is the first link there, which is a kind of tool. It's a private company that put it together, but it's kind of neat to use to look up what your current tariff is, because and this is touching both on imports and exports, but I have an exporter client that imports factors of production from Canada, and that's been volatile. You know, even watching the news, it's hard to keep track of what our the duty impositions are on products coming from Canada to the US and vice versa. So this tool is helpful. We also have a free trade agreement tariff tool on the trade.gov website, which is a link there. And that's just what it sounds. It's a similar tool as the first one I'm mentioning, but it's helping identify what our preferential duty rates are with our free trade agreement partners. And you just plug in your tariff code and the country and export or import. You select export or import, and it spits out what the current duty rate is. We also have on trade.gov the nuts and bolts of documents and shipping and logistics. There's lots of websites for training for your staff or yourself. And again, Mercedes touched on this, but there's an Incoterm section on there as well. So I'm obligated as the last speaker here to remind everybody in the audience that we just threw a ton of stuff at you. So I'm sympathetic to that. What's most important is that you remember any one of us, just reach out to us if you have questions about trade at any step in the process. And if I'm not the right person to answer those questions and Mercedes is, I'll pass you to her or to Kathryn. I'll always try to remind clients when I speak to them of our partners' programs. One of them specifically that I want to highlight is Kathryn at Global New York has that EMAS program, which I explained was similar to our international partner search, but they don't charge for it for New York companies. So if there's a country of interest that they're pursuing and New York State has a presence or representation in that market, I'm going to point you back to her to do an EMAS for free. It doesn't mean that you can't use our international partner search. I do have a friend that who's an international marketer, very experienced, and he uses both the international partner search and the EMAS from New York State, and he compares the results, and that's what he uses to determine his market entry strategy. So you can use both. The difference, of course, is that we have some fees associated with our programs. The other part I want to say is if there's a country that New York State doesn't provide the EMAS service or otherwise that you want to employ one of our services, that STEP grant that New York State has can be used to pay for some of our fee-based services, or 50% of them, because that's the match. So with that, I'll stop talking, and hopefully we can get to the Q&A if there's anybody left with questions, so we can, Mercedes and I can address those.
Yes, thank you so much, John. And we do indeed have questions. Was there anything that you wanted to say, Mercedes, before we launch into questions here?
Yes, I want to express my appreciation to my partners again, to John for his presentation and to Kathryn for forming this very highly collaborated alliance that, as he said, we are able to answer any questions, and we are constantly referring to each other. We have different resources, So I'm very, very happy that this is the situation that we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes. And I just wanted to read part of a comment that came in. This person said, small and medium-sized businesses really do have the world as their marketplace, and your programs can help them get started. And I thought that was a perfect way to say it. So thank you so much to our attendee for sharing that. Now, we have some questions, and if you do have a question, please pop it into the chat, and we will use the time that we have left to answer specific attendee questions. Now, the first question, and John, you said this very well at the end of your presentation, talking about how much information there's been today. So just to kind of scale things back a little bit, we had a question on what are the steps for a new small business that is just wanting to start out in international trade? What would be like their first, 1 to 3 steps that they would want to take?
I'll start, I guess, and you can add anything you want to add to that, Miss Mercedes. But the first thing I think of when a company calls me, and I do get calls occasionally from people or companies saying, "Hey, I want to be an importer and exporter." I'm like, "Oh, great. What do you want to import and export?" Well, I don't know. Whatever they're buying and selling, Like, oh, you're not fully baked yet. Let's you need to go back to the drawing board. It's the first primary thing you need is a customer. If you want to be an exporter, who are you going to sell to? If you've identified a market and a customer or a buyer, then proceed. And if you're not sure what to do next, you can reach out to us, like we've been saying all afternoon here. We have resources and we have experience in the process of shipping and logistics. I mean, that's kind of the second part of it. Like, how do I ensure that I secure my payment, ensure that I get paid, and how do I get it there? And those are the three things. You first find a buyer, then you partner with a logistics partner, like a freight forwarder customs broker that Mercedes was talking about. To think of them as like a travel agent for your cargo. They are your partner in every way. They're your partner in helping you with the logistics, the physical shipment, picking it up from your door, packaging and crating it as necessary, labeling it as necessary, getting it to the carriers, air freight or ocean freight or truck freight, and then arranging for it to be delivered to the destination country. And then at the other end, they will either turn it over to your buyer's customs broker, who's going to clear customs, or they could provide that service depending on what your Incoterms are, not to get too deep in the weeds here. So that's the second part, the logistics, the shipping and logistics. So your freight forwarder, customs brokers can be your partner there. You need one. If you have a customer and you have something to ship to them, you need a freight forwarder in the middle. And then thirdly, securing payment. You need to be talking to your banking partners, and this could be your own bank. I mean, we have lots of medium-sized banks that service our small business community that are internationally capable of creating a letter of credit, for example, is just one tool that you can use to secure payment. Alternatively, if you sell under open account, and Mercedes had this in that slide, it's a great slide to refer back to. If you sell on open account, then you're the most vulnerable at that point because you're shipping it to your customer without securing payment beforehand. But you can use a tool like foreign receivables insurance to protect that risk to make sure that you're going to get paid. So partnering with a logistics provider. So first find the buyer, secondly, find a logistics partner and identify how you're going to ship it there and how much it's going to cost you to ship it there. And then thirdly, find a way to secure payment. Those are the three fundamentals, I think. And then everything that, all the information that Mercedes has on those great slides is all expanding on those topics. And I would always say insure it. Always insure it, because I used to work in freight forwarding and shipping, and insurance is so valuable for transportation, and it's very low cost. It makes sense to do it. And this is not the topic of this webinar, but trust me, if you're getting into international business, find a way to insure it. And there's lots of ways you can insure it per shipment through your freight forwarder, or you can have a rider added to your plants and facilities insurance for inexpensively as inventory in transit. there's a lot of different ways to do it, but ensure that risk, because when you have a loss, which is going to happen when you're shipping things internationally, it's eventually going to happen. You're going to love that you had insurance because you get made whole and you wash your hands of it. If you don't have insurance, then it's an awful battle to try to get blood from the stone of the carriers, who all can limit their liability for international carriage of goods. So,
thank you, John. What would you add, Mercedes?
I just wanted to add one thing. Just Google if there is a demand for your product. First of all, you have to have a product. If you don't have a product, it's impossible to start. So you need to decide what is the product. And if you are manufacturing, or either you're a wholesaler. Because many times when people say, oh, I want to export and import, what's hot? I know that we are not going anywhere. When they ask me that, it's like, right. That's not a good way to start. You first need to have a product that is exportable, and then do research, and then follow all the steps that John had told you.
Yeah, before. I agree, Mercedes. That's the primary, the number one answer to that question is you need a buyer or you need a market. Everything else we can fill in after you've found that or identified that market.
Right. And that makes sense. The perfect place to start.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So we have an attendee who is interested, particularly in Africa. And so this was during your presentation, John. And if you could just maybe touch a little bit more on what services are available in Africa, because I remember you had your map up and with your different locations and all of that.
Yeah, we don't have offices in every sub-Saharan African country. North Africa, we're pretty good with coverage. But like I said, those places where we don't have commercial service staff, we can ask the economic section of the State Department for assistance in business advocacy. So even though that map has little balloons indicating that we have an office in South Africa, that office in South Africa assists us in market outreach into adjacent countries north of South Africa. So it doesn't mean that we can't help you if there's not a balloon on specific country you're looking at. But we're active in Africa, both North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa.
Excellent, thank you. And anything else you would add about Africa, Mercedes?
Yeah.
Anything particular, or John? Yeah.
I'll add a couple. Two things that just popped in my mind. One of the things that makes me grin here is that we get a lot of fraud inquiries, or inquiries that tend to be fraudulent, from Nigeria, and everybody's heard about this. And the frustrating thing is that Nigeria is very wealthy and a great market for U.S. products. So if you have an opportunity to be talking to someone that might lead to a business relationship in Nigeria, don't dismiss it out of hand, because it might be a real legitimate opportunity. And we can help you vet those. And that's one of the things that we do very easily, just with an email to my colleagues in Nigeria all the time. Can you verify if this looks legitimate? Because they're making some bold promises, and they claim to represent a minister of some government agency. Can you tell us if any of this is, looks right, or if there's any red flags? And red flags we talk about all the time. In Nigeria, that comes up a lot, but it's also a lot of opportunity for U.S. business there.
Thank you, John. And the person just added, do you have, so they're also interested in Liberia. And so I can't remember from the map if you had an office there or one nearby.
I don't know the current status of that, unfortunately, but I can easily look that up in about a minute.
Okay, go right ahead.
And again, if we don't have commercial service in Liberia, we can reach out to the economic section of the State Department.
Right, right. And Mercedes, I wanted to give you the opportunity. Anything that you wanted to add in particular about Africa?
On behalf of Kathryn, I know that they do have a consultant that works in South Africa and also covers the north of Africa. And the only advice that I will have is attend our next webinar, that we are going to discuss how to conduct due diligence on your buyer or your seller. It's like know your buyer or your seller, like John said. There is quite a bit of fraud, or people that send request or want to do business, just make sure you're doing business with the right person and that everything checks. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And I should have said that New York State has an office in South Africa as well. That also gives them reach into the sub-Saharan region.
Individual sellers are customers for us. Every customer is individual. So I don't understand the question that this person just placed.
Yeah, we just had a question about work with individual sellers. So we would love to have maybe for some of these follow-up questions about Liberia and individual sellers for more clarification. John and Mercedes, would you mind dropping your emails in the chat so then we can have people get in touch with you for a bit further information and some further clarification?
Sure, I already did that for one of
Okay,
the
perfect.
attendees.
Perfect. Yeah, if you'll just drop that again for everyone. And thank you, John, for doing that as well. While they do that, I want to thank all of you for being with us today. We appreciate your attendance and are glad for the opportunity to help you with what you might be interested in pursuing in international markets. And so please do. We have a link that we have dropped in the chat earlier, and I will find it and drop it one more time. So if you want to stay up to date with these upcoming webinars, you can join this email list, and you'll get emails about these upcoming events so that you know exactly when they're happening and can attend. All right. Well, we've got some thank yous. Want to pass those on, and you will see a survey briefly on your screen after I shut down the webinar today. We would love to get your feedback and know what else you are looking for help with your business. All right. Any parting words, John or Mercedes?
What I wanted
Liberia.
to
I'm sorry, Mercedes. Go ahead.
It's okay. No, what I wanted to invite everybody, there is so much information out that is free of charge through the website that we have shared here, but also many other resources. So I will highly encourage people to continue getting educated and not only attending webinars, again, doing research. There is so much on the web right now, and they can contact us and we can provide the guidance if they require. Thank you.
Right. And as a reminder, NYSBDC services are free of charge. So we are a government funded program and therefore do not charge clients. So, free source of information available to you. All right, John.
We do have an office in Liberia. It's called Partner Post, which is what I referred to before, where we don't have commercial service staff. We have the economic section of the State Department will lend assistance for business advocacy. So to that person, reach out to me and we can talk further.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John. All right. Well, we will shut things down now. Thank you again to our wonderful presenters and to our wonderful attendees. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much for helping us.
My pleasure.
You're
Bye-bye all.
fantastic. Thanks. Bye-bye.